Hi, this is Les Posen, clinical psychologist here in Melbourne, Australia, in August, heading towards springtime in the Southern Hemisphere. Welcome. Special welcome to all those people who are new subscribers and to people who've been subscribed for quite some time. Apologies for not giving you more frequent videos. Life gets the better of you sometimes. But a couple of videos to come up about some special situations. This week I was sent some emails and SMSs by both a patient and a friend about a new program that had been invoked by one of Australia's local, domestic and international airlines. Will not mention names, but we have several major airlines here in Australia that fly domestically, internationally, that are based here in Australia. And they're kind of interested in fear of flying, where the bottom dollar is, the bottom line is. I will mention one airline, Qantas for instance, for many, many years has been sponsoring a fear of flying program. It's actually run by the Women's Pilots Federation of Australia, and Qantas loans materials and occasionally personnel, but it's not their program. But it's called the Qantas, most people think of it as a Qantas program. It's actually sponsored by Qantas. I used to run a program actually by an airline that was Ansett Australia when it was in existence before it left this mortal coil in 2001, just 2 days after 9/11, would you believe? I actually finished with them a year before that, and I was with them for 6 years. But that was actually run by the airline, and so I consulted to the airline on that. There are a couple of other low-cost carriers who are interested, but it's really not particularly a program that they run. One of Qantas's major competitors is aligned with another organization that runs a fear of flying program. And I get referrals from all sorts of places, as you might expect, of course, from GPs and word of mouth, airports, occasionally from airlines too. But this particular week, one of these airlines, and again I'm not going to name, decided that they would instigate a new program where passengers intending to fly could, a week before their intended flight, go into their booking or their confirmation and make some notations there. Up on the screen is the news article that I want to read to you, which this colleague and patient sent to me to say, what do you think of this? Having spent time with me, they knew that I would have mixed feelings about this because they've understood my philosophy of how to help people fly better. Anyway, let's read it. Here we go. Under the program, passengers will get extra support to cope with their journey, from dedicated information about easing flight anxiety to having cabin crew drop by their seat to make sure they're okay. All they have to do is be part of the Nervous Flyers program, is tick a box when they book their flight. Okay, got to be 7 days before apparently. Then they'll have access to a range of extra support from the airline, which includes personalised emails with health and wellness advice, and behind-the-scenes technical information about the airline's operations, a positive affirmation text the day before the flight. Don't want that to look like it might be, you can do this, it'll be okay. I don't know what it's going to be like. The ability to access meditations on the in-flight entertainment system, and a number of airlines have begun to utilize apps like Headspace and a variety of meditation ones, and some extra attention reassurance from the cabin crew if they need it. Now, this all sounds terrific, and you might think, well, who would ever oppose that? Well, I do, and there's a reason for that. The main reason is this. Let me give you an example. Some time back, I was approached by a patient who needed to fly to Europe. It was the first time she was flying internationally. It was on one of the airlines that flies through the Middle East. Here in Australia, we have 3 airlines that fly through the Middle East and who are based in the Middle East. I can name them. Emirates, who fly into Dubai, several flights a day, either direct to Dubai or via Singapore. They use A380s, they use 777s, and I think they have 78s, I'm not sure, but they're the 2 very large aircraft. There's Etihad, which flies into Abu Dhabi, and we also have Qatar Airways that flies into Doha. These flights from Melbourne to those Middle Eastern locations are about anywhere between 14 and 16 hours, depending on the prevailing winds, because you're going against the wind. And they fly a variety of wide-body modern aircraft, and they all get very high ratings for their service, whether it be coach or business class or first class. This particular patient had come to me knowing that they had to fly to Italy, which meant flight into the Middle East of 14 to 16 hours, and then maybe 7 hours into Rome after that, with a layover in the Middle Eastern airport. We flew down to Launceston, as is my work with patients, over water, inexpensive. But that meant having to contemplate, can I take that experience successfully and migrate it to 16 hours plus 7 hours for someone who's never flown internationally. So there's a whole extra layer on top of the flight experience, which means going through customs, having to be at the airport 2 hours before, 400 people on an aircraft, not 135, whole other experience. Plus, of course, being away from Australia rather than just an hour's flight. So in order to help prepare and to add value to the work that we were doing, after we'd flown from, done our local flight, we decided that we would go out to the airport a week before their scheduled flight, at the same time that she would ordinarily need to be at the airport, and go and speak with the duty manager, that is the person who kind of runs the show for the airline. So I rang them up ahead of time and said, we're coming out, can we meet with you? There was a little bit of a pushback saying, well, I might not be the person who'll be there next week when your patient is here. I said, it makes no difference, as long as they get to meet you and get to know how the system works and you can walk us around a little bit. I did have a sort of a little hope that maybe they'd get us on a stationary plane, but that's not to be. Very hard to do anymore. Anyway, out we go to the airport, meet the duty manager. He explains to my patient how it all works, the staffing, what to do when they arrive at check-in, when they go through customs. It was terrific. It was a very, very good use of the time, and just the rehearsal and the exposure of being at the airport was really good. So at one point the patient said, I need to go to the restroom, and left me and the duty manager together. And we had a bit of a chit-chat. And the duty manager said, let me go and have a look at the load factors on the outbound flight for this passenger, who was having to, of course, do two flights, one to the Middle East and then one off to Italy, same airline. So he looked at the load factors, which means how busy is this aircraft going to be, and said to me, at this stage, the bookings are looking quite good. There's, we have no shortage of seats. There's plenty of room around. But there might be the opportunity for me to upgrade your passenger to business class. To which I put to you, dear listener, dear viewer, what do you think I said? Now, it could have been that that patient may have been eternally grateful to me for getting them into business class to the Middle East. After that, we couldn't guarantee what was going to happen. That's all we could do, Middle East. And so question is, should I have got the upgrade and say, yep, we'll take that because my patient will be forever grateful for me? Or did I say, no, let's keep her in economy, or that is the ticket area where she's purchased her ticket, because she had no expectation of being upgraded to business? So what did I say? Much to the surprise of the duty manager, I said, no, and please don't even mention it to the patient that you and I have had this discussion. Why? Well, here's the reason, and it goes to the start of this little video. Because I didn't want my patient's fear to be rewarded. Because you're fearful, you get the reward of being upgraded to business class. Now, if we come back to this Australian airline, who is going to give all this special attention, you might think, well, what's wrong with getting special attention? Well, the special attention is rewarding and reinforcing, and anything that rewards and reinforces and makes you feel special is not going to help you feel like an ordinary regular traveller without any fear. Your fear will get reinforced. Reinforced fear means you increase the probability that you'll maintain that fearful reaction or proposition towards flying. You're going to get special treatment. You're going to get behind the scenes look. You'll get special treatment. And my 25 years of doing this work says you don't want special treatment. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not important that you let the airline know your situation. So whenever I fly with patients, several days beforehand, or even the session before we fly, they will get this handout, which I want them to rehearse and use as we either go down the jetway, or most of the time here in Melbourne with the local airline Jetstar that I use, we will actually walk on the tarmac and then we'll go up the stairs. That, of course, is a quite significant time for that patient, and I want them focused on what's the right thing to do as they walk up those stairs. The not so right thing to do would be to say, I don't think I can do this, or it's so noisy out here, or that smell always gets to me of jet fuel. No, as you walk up the stairs, there's often a queue. I want you rehearsing what you're going to say to the cabin manager, and it's usually the cabin manager who will greet you at the front door. And you say 4 things. I'm usually behind that passenger. Okay, so I'm behind them. Also making a little bit of a buffer so that the people behind can't hear what's being said, and also in the plane is often not particularly quiet, so the people at the front can't really see or hear what's going on. They can sort of see that there's a discussion. No, they're not just showing the boarding pass and walking, there's a discussion. 4 things, here we go. Number 1, hi, I'm in 9A, or whatever the seat happens to be. Not what my name is. That's not critical to that cabin manager. Remember, the cabin manager is there as a safety officer. They're the airline's almost final effort to make sure that whoever's on board this aircraft is not going to interfere with the safety of the aircraft because they're ill, they're belligerent, they're drunk, they're drugged. Okay? It's the airline's next final part. And they have the ability, if they determine that you are in breach of any of those 4 circumstances, they can have you removed. Report it to the captain and you're off. Seen it happen. So, I'm in 9A. Why are you saying where you are, not who you are? It's because the cabin manager needs to know which of the cabin crew might be assigned to that area. If it's Jetstar and it's 9A, it's most likely going to be the cabin manager who'll be taking care of that area. If it's 27B, which is back of the aircraft, Jetstar has A320s back of the aircraft. This is our A320, so we're sitting back here, not at the front here. Then it might be Kathleen who's at the back, or Jim who's at the back, and they may get on the blower during the preparation phase when there's a quiet moment to say, passenger in 27B reports being a nervous flyer or being uncomfortable flying, just to let you know. That's what they'll do, but only after the next parts come. So, hi, I'm in 9A. 2, this is my first flight or my second flight as part of my fear of flying program. This is different than saying, hi, I'm Sally and I'm really scared. Or, hi, I'm Sally and I'm a terrible flyer. No. Hi, I'm in 9A and this is my first or second flight as part of or after doing my fear of flying program. That conveys to them that you're working on your fear of flying. Okay? Not that you are a fearful flyer, you're working on fear of flying. 3, I'm curious to see how I'm going to go today as compared to, I don't know how I'm going to manage. I think I'm really in the wrong place. Curiosity is a way of telling yourself, I'm going to approach this. I'm going to lean into my anxiety. I'm curious to see if all the things I've been learning in this program, or in your case, watching these videos, can really be applied in this actually historically scary place for me. Curiosity is the antidote to anxiety. Calmness and being relaxed is not. It's simply a part that comes along with your curiosity and getting better at this. It's an artifact. It is not the main treatment goal to be calm. You'll see this in my other videos. every session I almost always have to reinforce this with my patients. Calmness is not the goal. Doing the right thing, changing the way you go about things, is the right thing to do. What have we got so far? 3 things. Hi, I'm in 9A. 2, this is my first flight after doing a fear of flying program, or as part of my fear of flying program. 3, I'm curious to see how I go today, which is really you saying to you, I'm curious to see which of the tools that I've learnt really have great application in situ, in the real thing, rather than in rehearsal or watching videos. 4, and I often will say this is optional, but it really is quite important. 4, if a member of the crew can come up and say hello to me at some point during the flight, see how I'm doing, I'd appreciate that. The expression of appreciation to another human being is also somewhere between your curiosity and being calm. It's a way to sort of settle down. When you experience, or when you express appreciation, it's kind of a healthy thing hormonally to feel closer to someone in that respect. There have been times when I was able to get people on board aircraft with a member of the airline with me. We had a bit of a tour, whatever else. This aircraft was sitting there not going anywhere, can't do it anymore, just too busy. And occasionally crew would come onto the aircraft, taking that aircraft out next. They had about 45 minutes before the aircraft was getting ready to go. We were on board during a quiet Saturday afternoon, for instance. And if there was a cabin manager who wanted to know what we were doing on board, we were introduced, and I said, can I ask you for a favour? And they'd say, well, yeah, I've got 45 minutes. We'll start to get the aircraft ready, and we've got plenty of time. And I'd say, would you mind just taking your position as you would boarding the aircraft, as you would in preparation for the aircraft boarding? And they go, yep, I'll do that. So they would stand there, and we would go outside the aircraft into the jetway, and we would walk in with my patient being instructed to go through this list of 4 things. The flight attendant, the cabin manager, didn't know what we were doing. And so this was the first time they would often hear this. And then the patient went through this. Sometimes they had to read it. That was fine. And then we would both turn to the cabin manager and say, what do you think about that? And they said, that's great. Because if I look at you and I don't know why are you looking nervous, why are you a little bit tearful, why are you looking a bit furtively, I can only guess what's wrong, and I don't want to have to walk up to you during the flight and make guesses. So the more you tell me, the more I can respond accordingly, which basically means you are treating that flight attendant, that cabin manager, as they see themselves as a safety officer. 80% of the training that they do is about safety. You only get to see the 20%, which is service. So basically their training is hidden from you. You get to see a little bit at the beginning where they don the safety vests and they go through the safety briefings, and the same at the end. But most of the time you'll only see them doing service. But under the hood, under that service, is safety. Number 1 priority. So when you walk up to them, you introduce yourself, you treat them as a safety officer. When they sit down, and I then introduce myself on a real flight to the cabin manager and say, this is what we're doing, and thank you very much, blah, blah, blah. I'll usually sit down and say to my patient in 9A, how was that? Sometimes people are reluctant to introduce themselves, and oftentimes the more reluctant they've been, but they go through with it, the more happy they are that they did it. That she was really good, or he seemed really attentive, or I'm glad I said what it is. I feel much better having explained what's going on. And then maybe once or twice during the flight, they'll come up and say, how you doing? They'll spend a little bit of time with us. Again, we don't want to do too much of this because I don't want my patient to feel special or to get special attention, because it will simply reinforce the fear. I just want them to be average. When I say to most of my patients, what do you want to do? Do you want to feel really special, or do you want to feel average? They almost always say average, because they understand the principle. If I feel special, it will simply keep my fear going. As it turns out, there's an emblem that will go on your ticket and follow you around through the airline. This is a symbol that the airline uses, very nice, hand and heart and so forth. I got to tell you, my guidance on this would be, do not declare this in the system of the airline, because other people, apart from the cabin manager, will get to see this. I don't see the point. You don't want to see yourself as special because of your fear. Okay? Be special for all sorts of other reasons, but not because you're fearful. It will keep it going. So, you introduce yourself to the crew, it's done, they'll look after you a little bit, but no more than normal. End of story. The other reason, by the way, for the business class one, if you remember with the international market one that I was doing, where I said to the duty manager, don't upgrade them. I actually jokingly also said, but if you see me coming, by all means upgrade me. The difficulty with the patient was they get upgraded to business class, really enjoy themselves, and then they get downgraded to economy, and we're basically back to square one, unless I can afford upgrading. So my strong advice to you is I wouldn't be advising my patients to enroll in this program and get all this special treatment. I would be advising them to focus on what's the right sort of treatment that I need. Meditation, up to a certain point, kind of helpful. Knowing how the airline system works and what happens with weather, yeah, sure, really good. But don't treat yourself as special and be locked into an airline's program that says I'm a special person. One more thing. One of those other airlines that I spoke about earlier, when people graduate from their Fear of Flying program, their Fearless Flying program, get a little card that says I'm a graduate of the Fearful Flying or the Fearless Flying program, and they're supposed to show it to the cabin manager when they enter. And my idea with that has always been no. Again, do not expect to be treated specially because you've graduated from a program and now I've got this. Just fly like a regular, ordinary person. Don't expect special treatment because it will perpetuate and keep your fear going. Okay? If you want to be treated like a special person, pay for it and upgrade to business class. Or be a nice person when you enter, and maybe you'll get some special treatment. But don't do it because you're fearful. Okay, that's my advice. You are more than at liberty to disagree with me in the comments section down below. But I hope you'll understand the thinking I have about this. We have to stop reinforcing the fear. Sometimes it's overt and very obvious we're doing it. Other times it's more subtle. And this is one of the subtle ones because it looks like the right thing to do. But my guidance is it probably isn't. But as they say in the airline business, your mileage may vary. And there'll be more videos to come soon, not just about flying, but anxiety in general, especially panic disorder, which I'll talk about because too often we're treating panic disorder inappropriately. Speak to you again soon.